I think it's working. Cool, cool, cool. Yay, yay, yay. All right. We are officially live. We are not streaming into the Summit platform yet, so hold momentarily for that. Come on. This is the part I hate because it's just so awkward. We're just like, okay, we're here, we're live. But we got to get it plugged into the Summit platform so everybody can see us. And it's just this fun, awkward silence in the meantime. All right, we are almost ready to go. There we have it. Loading, loading, loading. Okay, we should be live. About to test it out now. Hang on one second. Let me get this moved over a little so I can see the chat. All right, there we are. We are live. All right, if you are watching this, hello, welcome to the panel. I'm going to pop in the chat really quick to refresh your page if you don't see us. The stream, beautiful. Okay. Welcome to the day 3 live panel. We are so excited that you are here. We are going to dive into a really fun topic today about community and content and how those things work together. We've got Tara and Audrey coming in here real quick. There they are. Hi. We have such a full panel today. So many beautiful, beautiful faces. Hello, Audrey. Hello, Tara. We are live. We are doing the dang thing. Thanks for jumping in. So, as you can see, we've got an incredible lineup of speakers here today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves really quickly in a minute, but we are so pumped that you're here. I'm really excited about this panel because I think, content is one of those things that can feel really tricky for some people. But especially when you're trying to build communities and you're trying to create content that really connects with your people. But when you nail it and you master that, oh, it's so good. Am I right? So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to let our speakers just introduce themselves really quick. Now, speakers, they're getting to know you already from your session. So this doesn't need to be your 60-second elevator pitch, okay? Let's do 10 seconds. Just my name is, here's what I do, just to give them a little refresher of who they're hearing from in case they've already heard from you or maybe they haven't seen your session quite yet because it hasn't gone live. So Megan, we'll pass it over to you. And then Andrea, you go right after that.
Hi, I am Megan. I am a CPA, but I'm actually a cool CPA. I'm not your dad's crusty dusty. I'm here to help you understand your money. And to be quite honest, I'm woo adjacent. I have my vision board sitting by me at all times. I got tarot cards and everything. So I'm very open to energetics and helping you really make a lot of money, but also in a very fun way that feels good. Finance doesn't have to be boring.
Okay, I'll go next. Hi, my name is Andrea Jones. I am a mindful marketing strategist. I help busy people create simpler, smarter marketing strategies that actually fit in with all of the things that we have happening in our lives.
Love it. Katrina, we'll pass it to you. And then Melissa.
Hello, everybody. My name is Katrina. I am the founder of Knockout Directive, which is a PR for personal brands consultancy. So I am passionate about helping business owners feel famous for their work and so excited to be here today.
Hi everyone, I'm Elisa Esmeralda, founder of MEO Marketing Group. I'm a conversion copywriter and funnel optimization strategist. I basically write all the unsexy things a lot of business owners don't have the time for or they don't want to do themselves just to make sure everything's running the way you want it to.
I love it. Audrey, we'll pass it over to you. And then Tara, you finish us up.
Yay, so excited to be here. Thank you so much for putting this on. So I am Audrey. I am a holistic life coach for women. I basically help women, kind of high achieving women who are feeling a little bit burned out or just feeling really unhappy in life. I help them to like calm their nervous system, come back into their happiness, because I do believe that you can do all the things, but you can also be really happy.
Okay, awesome. My name is Tara. I'm the founder of Hey Girl, You Can. So I really support women who want to grow themselves to grow their business into the very best version of themselves because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
I love it. I love such a great one to end on, right? The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. I love it. So we're going to dive right on in. Now, attendees, as you're watching, please pop your questions in the chat. I know you've got questions about content creation, about community building, about bridging the gap between those two things. So please pop your questions in the chat box. We're going to try to answer as many of them as we can at the end of this and throughout this. And our speakers are here. They're ready to give you that value. So we want to hear from you and know where you're struggling in this area or where you are like, I don't understand this. I don't understand how people are doing this. So pop that in the chat. We want to hear about it. So speakers, I'm going to just start diving into questions, and you guys know the drill. Just unmute when you've got something to say, and we'll see if we can manage to not talk over each other through the whole thing. First and foremost, I think it would be really important, since they may not know some of you yet, if your session hasn't gone live, or they may just not know you very well. I think it would be really helpful if we could all just kind of go around and explain, like, what does community look like for your business? Because I think a lot of times we hear the word community, we talk about community building, and our mind instantly goes to like a Facebook group, right? And it's like running a Facebook community, or we think of like in-person, like networking events or whatever. And it's like that kind of community. And both of those are great, right? But there's so many other options and ways to build community. And I know you're all doing it in very different ways. So I would love to hear from each of you, just kind of in a quick snippet, like, what does community look like in your business right now?
I'll kick us off.
Hi.
So for me, community in my world is a membership. I run a membership for all the women that I serve. It's called the Rise Sisterhood. And we come in and we have meetings like twice a month where we all get together via Zoom. So that's like my version of community. I love it to be virtual and just really accessible.
I would say my community isn't a place, it's a concept. A lot of my people, we kind of rally around a collection of beliefs that we all agree upon. So a lot of my community members, like, we love the work that we do. We love to work really hard, but we're not hustling all the time. You know, we're not relaxing on the beach and like letting their money roll in either. It's that sweet spot between those two things. We oftentimes have a lot of responsibilities in our lives, family. We don't want to be chained to like Instagram notifications. And so it's more of like the group of people we rally around those concepts, and we find solace in those, and then we work together. So that could be, you know, in my circle community, it could be in our email inbox, it could be on Facebook or Instagram. So we kind of find each other where we're at.
Yeah, I actually love what Andrea said about it not being a place, because I relate to that too. I mean, I'm the PR girl, so for me, it's all relationships. So those relationships can be in person, but they can also be online, whether that's in an actual online community like Circle or School, or it's your Instagram following or LinkedIn, or the relationships that you're really cultivating on that platform. I really believe in two-way communication. Really making sure that we're treating each and every one of those people that either want to be clients or want to support our work if we one day write a book or have a podcast, really making sure that those people have a relationship with us and the work that we do. So I treat it like having a fan base. So how do you nurture that fan base? How do you continue to have people that are invested in the work that you do? And that really is through this kind of two-way engagement. So, we give and we give information, but then we also receive that support from them. So for me, it's all relationships.
And for me, it's helping women understand and educating them how to make savvy financial decisions. And so I do have a group community for those women who aren't ready for a one-on-one CPA to come into their business, where they can come in and ask questions during office hours. And what they find is they're not as much alone because people are asking the same questions they have. So they realize that there's nothing wrong with them. They understand business, they understand money. And then also the educational component. And then for my private one-on-one clients, the community is we are all women in business. We are all building empires. And we can all commiserate on how it is to operate in this society, where we have to balance all of these commitments along with our business.
You said that really well. I really, really love that. I consider my community from my email list. Email marketing is my bread and butter, is primarily what I'm known for. So I actually ended up implementing an anonymous question form. It's like an ask me anything type of thing, just because I know a lot of my subscribers are newer business owners and you have so many questions when you're new. And it makes me feel closer to them, even though if people like don't leave their names or anything, because people are vulnerable with me, so I'm vulnerable with them. So like if I come up with like an unexpected challenge, or I'm talking about like what was like for me when I was brand new, because I actually don't come from a marketing background, which I used to be really insecure about. But now that I've been doing this for 4 years, like that's not there anymore. But like I am more vocal about it, just because I know it's so easy to feel like, oh well, who am I to charge for this thing when I only have a little bit of experience, for example. And like it's not impossible. It's just going to look a little bit different compared to someone who maybe already has 4 or 5 years of experience. So I've really enjoyed answering all of the questions in like the following week's newsletter. And that way I'm able to like personalize every single response, and it encourages people to be like, oh, okay, well, that's helpful. And sometimes people are just venting. Sometimes people are asking like a question about like funnels and email marketing, for example, but it's really helped me feel closer to my community.
I love it. So for me, community, I say this all the time, and this is my soapbox. Community, I believe, is the new currency. I've been in business 27 years, and I've never believed this more than now, and that you build your community before you need it. So I have a number of different communities. The big one that I'm working right now is obviously Hey Girl, You Can. And our community lives in a couple different places, on Facebook, in person, through Zoom, things like that. I just want to circle back to Katrina, what she had said, because you really hit home. My very first book I wrote, and it was a time in my life where I had no money. I was trying to get my life back together after a domestic violence divorce and my daughter's cancer, and I was broker than broke. And everyone said, write a book, write a book. And then when I found out it costs money to write a book, I don't know if you know that, but it's actually really expensive. And I was like, I have no money to write a book. And somebody suggested doing a GoFundMe, which this was years ago. So GoFundMe wasn't the way it is now. It was kind of odd, like that you would do that, because it was all for, real things. But I will tell you, in 1 month, my community funded the entire book, the editing, everything. My daughter's surgeon was one of the first ones who donated to the book. And it was in that moment I realized the power of community, because community is not about us. It's not an audience. There's a difference between an audience and a community comes together. And so I think women, we are wired biologically to live in community, way different than men. We were the villagers. We raised our babies together. We forged the wild berries together. Like, we are born to be in community.
I love that so much. That was such a mic drop moment, Tara. The community is the new currency. Like,
Yeah,
boom,
that is
we're
my
done.
motto. Yep.
End of panel. That was it. We're done. That's all you need to know. That's the most important part, right? I love that. And I love that every single one of you touched on such a different way that you're building community, right? But at the end of the day, it all comes back to like we love on our people and we listen to what they need, right? And so like, Megan, you were even saying like if they don't need this right now, I have this for them and I create space for that. And so I think that's the really important part is having that two-way connection. And I think that's a part that a lot of people kind of miss sometimes. We think about community building and I think sometimes we think, okay, I'm going to build a community and that's going to sell my offers and that's going to sell my stuff. And I'm going to be the, queen bee leader of the community and everybody's going to know who I am and everybody's going to love me and it's going to be great. But it's a two-way connection. It's like you have to know them and you have to know what they need and you have to be able to anticipate that and really relay that into what the mission of the community is and where it's going and how it's growing and evolving over time, right? So I would love to know, as we kind of start to like mush this into content and talking about content beyond just education and giving value, right? We all know if you're creating good content, it needs to be informative, it needs to be fun, it needs to give value, it needs to do all those things. We know that. So beyond that stuff, how are you leveraging content specifically to connect with your people? And I'd love for this to go deeper than just like, oh, I love like DMing my people on Instagram, right? Like, how are you really leveraging the power of content, whatever content you're utilizing in your business, to really forge those deep connections?
Oh, I'd love to go first if that's okay. Sorry, Tara. I actually, when I sent out my email to my list for this summit, it was I don't always get very personal. Usually it's more like educational and fun, stuff about my dog, and I got a little bit personal just because I was telling my list about how 4 years ago I was going through a really tough time in my life, job that I hated, almost had to get a restraining order on somebody. It was just a really scary time. And this is the first time I came across a summit and all these women, all these panelists are talking about like, oh, like I built this incredible business and like with my expertise. And I thought, wow, that sounds great. How can I do that? I'm like sobbing because it was such like a really hard time in my life. And it was the Females on Fire Summit. And I started off with that story. And that's how I was able to connect the two together because like it's all true. And like it's just showing how much your life can change in just a few years. And yeah, it's hard. It's gonna be hard for everybody, but even though it feels really difficult now, you can do so many little steps every single day to have a different type of change. So like I got a lot of replies from that, and like a lot of people are looking at the landing page. So I got really excited about that. But like there was a purpose to it. Like you don't always have to be super vulnerable. Like it's completely up to you. But like I felt like that was such an appropriate place to be able to talk about something like that because that was something that was very meaningful to me and kind of like a full circle moment, I guess.
Wow. That's like, oh, and I'll say, and I've been in business for a long time, but starting different businesses. And Melissa, that's just inspiring for me too, because I think we all need to remind ourselves that just because you have one business that's been for a long time, when you start a new one, you're still starting at point A again, right? So I love that. I think, oh, 4 years, where will that be? Um, so I will tell you for me with community, because one of the things I teach is kind of what Haley was talking about. There's a difference between community and an audience. What I see, what most people want is an audience, and they're calling it a community. And they're saying it's community, but that's not what they want. They just want to be, like they said, like the spotlight on them. And I always kind of, if you visualize being on stage, so an audience is you're on stage. This could be, where you're speaking and they're listening. Community is when you step off the stage, you get into the audience with everybody and you go, Haley, you need to meet Melissa. And Melissa, you need to meet Megan. And you start to make almost like a spider web of connections. So that's really the visual for a community. So one thing I really like to do is how can I try to find every single way I can put the spotlight on someone in the audience. So I'll give you an example. We had an in-person event yesterday. It was the first one that we had in this new area. And we said, hey, if you're a woman in business and you want to bring something to donate, we'll do some prize giveaways to like highlight those people. And then I kind of forgot about it, which wasn't great. And at the end, a girl said, oh, I have something. And I was like, oh, yeah, we're doing giveaways, right? And so we gave her gift away and someone won. So when I sent the follow-up email this morning, I highlighted her. I said, thank you so much to Vanessa Drew from Cleansing Concepts. She donated this and this was who our winner was. So it gave me an opportunity to get two people's names in that email. Also, even little things like, let's say you hear somebody like, let's say Katrina gets, you see that she tells you, hey, I got PR in this article and they just put me on here. I just posted a podcast. I might go into the Facebook group and be like, hey guys, did you see Katrina just got here? People love recognition and they will stay where they feel appreciated, valued, loved on. And so in the digital world, it's even easier because you can post an Instagram post. There's nothing, I said to the girls yesterday, nothing easier than to go through people in your community, go through their Instagram. I'll do this for you guys. I did this for Haley. Like, I go and I find people and I go, okay, Haley had an inspirational post that kind of inspired me. I'll share that to my story. That free digital currency will give you so many returns because wouldn't you love someone to do that for you? Right? You would love someone to share your post or put 10 likes on your page, right? So it's an easy way to support our community members, take the spotlight off of us and shine it on them.
Yeah, that's really beautiful, Tara. And honestly, it's so interesting because I think in this kind of digital world, we can sometimes feel like we're always in competition with everybody that's around us. And I really believe once you have like a highly differentiated, unique personal brand, like you really can collaborate with anyone, regardless if you have the same ideal client, you have similar offers. I really believe that there's space for everybody. And when you can get into the mindset of sharing the work of others and really like spotlighting others, I just find that that's actually when your business is going to start to grow exponentially. And for me, what that looks like in content is taking people along on the journey with you. Because I mean, we've all seen like the people in the internet space who like share their wins, share their like, income claims month over month, and it starts to just feel really like, okay, but what are they not telling us? Like people are so quick to share like all the amazing things that they've accomplished, and we start to feel like it detracts from our success if we share the hard parts. But I actually believe when we share the hard parts, it's when we get in with us and they trust us so much more. And there was a conversation the other day with a business mentor of mine because her and I are very you share the things that we're a part of, share the people that have helped us. And I'm getting at your internet connection is unstable message, so hopefully I'm not frozen. But okay. Essentially, I'm just like to continue to share and lift other people up and the people that have supported us in our journey and not think that that's going to detract from our business success. It's only going to lift us up and support us. So for me, my content from like a personal brand PR perspective, the more you can show that you have reps and are tuned in with what other businesses are doing and the better it's going to be for you. So really bringing people along on that journey and shouting out, sharing people that have helped you along the way, I think is the most powerful and honestly like ends up being some of the highest performing content I've done. So would recommend.
I love all of this, and I just have to like piggyback off of all of this. It's like the same thing for me. What was that recent reel trend that went around that was like, thanks, like you're funny, like thanks, but, and like it was something super vulnerable that we put below. And these are the things like I did start off kind of like what you guys were just talking about, where it was like, oh, let me just be super educational. Let me just share the win, like a year out, right? Like not sharing the whole journey. And now as I've started to switch that and just show up super authentically, that's like when the community started really growing. Because I've noticed in person when I host a retreat or when I'm on, a community call, I can be like super vulnerable like that. But then on social media, I would get like stage fright and be like, I can't show up. Like, I can't say the truth. Like, they're not going to believe in me. Like, how could I be a leader if I'm not like saying this, if I don't look like the person on stage? But once I stepped off, like you were saying, Tara, and got in the crowd and was able to like share the vulnerabilities and share the thing, that I'm struggling with, that's when the community really started to grow more and to feel more intimate and feel more connected because they knew like I'm right there with them. Like I'm going through it every day too. So I think that vulnerability really helps.
Oh my gosh. Just like co-signing what everyone said here. I'm going to use a little bit of alliteration because I love a little alliteration moment. But one of the things I've been talking with a lot about to my community, my members, is to forget the formula and focus on the feelings. Or we can say forget the formula and foster friendships. Because I feel like sometimes, especially when we're newer to marketing, the formulas help, right? It's like post this piece of content on this day, say this thing in this order. And that does help us figure out how to create content, right? We're learning the skill of creating content online, and we need those foundational things to be able to, understand the technical elements of putting together an Instagram reel or of writing a caption. But at some point, those formulas can actually be a wall, a barrier between building community with people, which is, Tara said, getting into the crowd, talking to people instead of shouting at them. And so at some point, we do have to forget the formula and go, okay, this is a human on the other side of the screen. And I like to use the dating analogy a lot for this because you can't just say, oh, 5 dates, go home with them. 10 dates, meet the parents. 25 dates, propose. Like it just it doesn't happen that way. Some people are really quick. Like I met my husband and within 9 months we were married. And I moved a whole nother country for him. Some people date for years and years and years. And still at the end of it, they're like, it's not going to work out. Right. And so I think a lot of relationship building online is that like there isn't a formula to it. It's not a like 10 posts and then they're going to buy something from you. And so, yes, the formulas can help, but at some point we have to forget the formulas and focus on fostering actual relationships with people.
Yes, and piggybacking on off all of this is great. I was recently published in a collaborative collection of stories. Hay House author Jennifer Grace has a publishing company, and she published an anthology. And in the story that I told in my section of the book, one of the things that got me out of, I heard somebody else talk about being in a DV relationship, was the imposter syndrome that I had because here I am as a CPA and I was being financially abused. And getting over that, the first tool that I used was community. And, at the time it was about 10 years ago, so online communities weren't as large. So it was finding that in person, but now it is so powerful that we can find our people online. And where before there was a lot more isolation, I think now having access to community online in the online space and building a community in the online space is just really amazing.
I feel like I don't even know. Like, I want to repeat like so many things that got said from every person because there's so many like mic drop moments in there. And I love that every single one of you, it's like, I'm vulnerable with my people when I need to be. I lean on my people when I need to. I put the spotlight on them when I need to, right? And it all just kind of comes back to that. And it is that deep relationship building, right? And I love that you're all infusing that into your content. I think this is like, I'm gonna have to like post this later with the hashtag like mic drop moment or something because there's so many little snippets that I just want to go post on our Instagram now because every single one of you had something where I'm just like, ooh, let me write that down. That's so good. So I'd love to hear, and this kind of funnels into what my next question was going to be. Megan asked, what do you do when you're trying to build these relationships and build this community and do that through your content, but you only have like 10 followers. You only have like 10 people listening. You're just starting out. And I know that, that can sometimes feel really overwhelming when you're like, I know what to do and I'm doing it, but because I only have 10 people or I only have, 50 people or I have 1,000 followers and they're not that engaged, like I'm not getting the stuff back that I need to be able to really foster this community. So what's your advice for when you are starting out and it's just those couple of people and you've got to like really lean in and love on those people? What's your advice for that?
I
I
don't
ha-
think that it's really when you're building a community, it's not about what they're bringing you, the validation that they're bringing you. It's what are you providing to them? When I started my group program, I had a handful of people in it, but one person was consistently showing up and she was constantly saying, "This is the best thing that's ever happened for me. I've learned so much here." So you may think I only have 10 followers, but to those people, they're like, finally, somebody understands me. So I think that that's important to remember as you're building community.
Okay, so I think uh, there's this concept of you really only need 1,000 raving fans. There's a whole book about that. I think sometimes we think that we need millions. And I'll just tell you, for me personally, I built a very large email list, but I was one of those who like, I'll just cast a net and anybody who wants to be in my list, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. And as I started to build out an actual membership, I realized that there were a lot of people on the list, but they were not the people. Right. And I actually would have better results having a smaller list of targeted ideal clients, people who want my message, than just lots of people, right? So sometimes we're looking at those vanity numbers and they're really not. The other thing I want to remind you is that if you only have 10 people, you really don't have 10 people. The average person has an influence of 500 to 1,000 people. You know, when people say to me, oh, I don't know anybody, like I remember 27 years ago, people would say to me, I can't refer you to anybody. I don't know anybody. That is a lie. Go to their Facebook. They know someone. Like that does not exist anymore. I'll work with a new business owner and she'll be like, I don't know anybody. I'm like, you have 850 people on Facebook and you don't even have a big following. You know people, liar, right? So that one person knows hundreds of people. So I want you to look at those 10 people and actually visualize that if each of them knows 1,000 people that could do business with you, you have currently in your arsenal 10,000 potential clients. And so when you start to think that way, it shifts that you're not like, oh, I just have 10 people. You have 10,000. You just need each of those 10 to be your raving fan that they're going to be willing to share you with their people. And that's how you build.
This question just like lit me up so much because I remember it very clearly, like being there and being that person's like, oh, I got 3 likes, I got 10 people. Or the first retreat that I ever hosted was like 6 clients. And it was like, I felt so small, right? But piggybacking like so much off of what Tara said, you pour everything into those women. You pour everything into those 10 women, just like you would if it was a crowd of 500, like we don't show up only when we have the big crowd, right? Showing up and pouring everything into those women, and they are going to tell their friend, and that friend's going to tell their friend, and that's how you grow, right? And also, I just want to say it's so cliche and so soft for me to say this, but I have to remind everybody that if you have 10 likes on Facebook or whatever it is, just imagine those people as real people standing in front of you, truly cheering you on and loving what you're doing, right? And when it's the most cliche thing. We all talk about this, but really imagining that if they were in real life, like right there with you, like it's not nothing.
I love everything that everyone is saying. And to be honest, I think 10 is a great number because everything that Tara was saying about reframing it, like everybody knows somebody, that is true. But also, say you host like a webinar, like an event, and not as many people show up, that's okay. See it as an opportunity of like, oh, I can really serve these people in a way that's super personal and really customized. And they're like, wow, they just delivered so much value. And then people start talking about it more and don't necessarily see every interaction as like, oh, I have to close this client and have to like make money out of it. Like people can really feel that. And as long as you're delivering with value and you're being yourself and just trying to be helpful, and that really goes a long way because you never know where somebody is in their life or in their business. They might be ready right now. They might be ready in 6 months. They might know somebody, they might not be ready themselves, but they might know somebody who is closer to the sale just because they realize like, oh, this person gives so much value to my friend. I trust my friend and I know them. So that is so helpful in the long run. That's why building relationships is so important and not seeing people as dollar signs and seeing them more as a relationship and an opportunity. Because sometimes you never know. You might meet someone at something that you're hosting and you realize, oh, actually, I could use their services. Or they know somebody that can really help me out in a certain way with something like I've been needing, for example. So a 10 really isn't small. It just might feel small initially, but you can still provide so much value and tap into their network as well.
Yeah, and as someone who worked in influencer marketing for a significant period of time, I will tell you a lot of those people with thousands, tens and thousands of followers, just because they have tens of thousands of followers does not mean that they're making tens of thousands of dollars every single day. There are so many ways that that person could have got that many followers, and we don't live in an age where follower count equals revenue anymore. So someone with 10 followers could be making far more money and making much more meaningful sales than the person that has this like inflated number that might not even really mean anything these days. The one thing that I would offer as a suggestion is I'm really passionate about growing, this omnipresence when it comes to personal branding. And I tell each of my clients, you got to leave the house. Yeah, we have online businesses. Yes. Yeah, that is where like I make most of my sales on Instagram. But a lot of those people that have found me on Instagram, I've also met in person, because meeting people in person is a much stronger way to start to generate those referrals, to build trust, and to be memorable. People are going to remember you far more if they had the chance to experience you in person, see what you're like, get a feel for you. I remember every single person I've ever met in person. I don't remember, like, not to discount the work that we're doing right now, but if you were to walk past me on the street in 2 hours, you might not know that was Katrina from the Females on Fire panel. And that's no shade. That's just because we have power when we're in person. So if you are looking to grow your online presence, you do have to start to find other ways. Big fan of the in-person, find events to go to, and really start to generate those real world relationships, because it's going to help you grow so much faster.
Okay, I think I'm the last one. So I want to end on a little bit of a different vibe here, which is a concept I saw someone say this online recently. Fish where the fish are. I feel like sometimes with our content, we're trying to like call people over to us. And to be a good community leader, I believe you also have to be a really good community contributor first. And so oftentimes when someone comes to me and they're like, oh, nobody's liking my post, I don't get responses to my emails. I'm like, okay, how are you contributing? Are you liking posts? Are you responding to people's emails? Are you in other communities? And so my favorite, like, I know we're not supposed to have star students, but I've got star students, like people in my community who have like, they've been ride or die with me from day one. They found me because they heard me on someone else's podcast. I spoke on the Females on Fire Summit. I went to in-person events. I went to where they already were, and I said, "Oh, hey, let's be friends. Come on in. The water's fine." And so I feel like sometimes when we look at our content, we're so focused on us, and like the spotlight is on us instead of going where people already are. And so what I suggest is if you are looking at your post and you're like, man, I'm not getting a lot of engagement, ask yourself the two questions. Are you being a community contributor somewhere else? And how are you providing value in other places? Comment like you're posting is another one that I always say all the time. Comment like you're posting. I think that when we can, be that person that we want people to be in our community, that's such a powerful thing to put out into the world.
I love this so much. And I love that each of you kind of gave a little bit of a reframe, right, in your own ways. Like Melissa, I was about to break my neck, nodding my head when you were talking about like the reframe of 10 people. Like now I get to create this really intimate group and go really deep with these people, right? And all of a sudden that becomes an entirely new experience than what you maybe were wanting to create, right? You wanted a webinar with thousands of people where you're getting all these new leads. But now you've got this group of 10 and you can go so deep with them and get so real with them that they're bought in. And that's how you create those star students that Andrea was just talking about, right? And you all kind of gave those really fun reframes that I think are so helpful when it comes to, putting content out into the world and building a community. But Andrea, I'm really glad you took it that direction, because my next question was kind of going to be about like, what do you do when you're just hearing crickets? Like when you've brought the people in, they were there initially, but now they're not engaging. The content is, for lack of a better term, flopping. And you kind of mentioned that, right? Are you going out and engaging yourself? Are you going out into other communities yourself? And so that kind of leads us into Amber had a question where she said, for those of us that are just starting out or in our first year of business, what tips do you have for finding our community to start building those relationships to further our business and ourselves? And Andrea, I think you just kind of answered that. It's okay, you've got to get out into other communities. So I want to reframe this question a little bit from what I was originally going to ask. And I want to ask you guys, how do you find those other places to tap into when you're just starting out, or when you need those new leads and those new connections and you really need to start bringing people back to you? Instead of calling it in, how are you finding the places to go out? Because, there's so many events, there's so many Facebook groups, there's so many places you could be. So what's your process for going, yep, that's the place for me. Let me go be involved in that.
So I'll tell you, this was a big one for me because when I first started my business, this is before social media, I moved 7 times in 8 years over 3 states. And so I remember moving to Colorado, doing an event, set the whole thing up, had like the posters on the walls, everything, and no one showed up. I was like 25 years old. I sat on the floor and I cried. And I was like, I have to start all over again. But I will tell you this is where sometimes we're getting blessings that we don't realize, because what it did was it built my resiliency. It made me really develop a very strong marketing skills. And now I say all the time, you could drop me on Mars. I will have a business there in 6 months because I learned to do it over and over again. And that makes you very powerful. So when you feel like nobody's listening to you, when you feel like there's not anything coming back, if you feel powerful enough to say, I am resilient enough that if I get knocked down and every single person unsubscribes on my list tomorrow, I will be back with 6 months with a new list and a new business, and you cannot stop me. I appreciate those hardships because it built that power, right? So I would do, and this was my big thing. I think there's Eventbrite, there's Meetup, there's Facebook groups, there's all those places to go. My sweet spot was finding other businesses that aligned with what I was doing and then connecting with them. And so, for example, I moved out to Colorado. I didn't know one person in the state, but I found businesses that kind of aligned with what my business did. It made sense that we had an ideal client. And then I would go in and create a proposal that was a win-win. I'll come in and do this for your business. This is what's going to give me. This is why I'm doing it. I was always upfront. This is why I'm doing it. This is what I'm looking for, but here's what I'm going to give you. And I will tell you, I just recently did this. You guys don't see, Katrina and I are talking. I said that what she just said was meant for me. It was meant for me because I become lazy and I don't like to leave my house. And I got the assignment. I'm on the Female Fire branding today, but I'm in my yoga pants, right? Like I don't want to get dressed. And I've realized that I have this new VIP day, and it's a little bit difficult to, build those connections where somebody's going to go, yes, this chick knows what she's talking about. She's worth spending this money in, and I'm going to invest a day with her, but I'm great in person. So I just found 3 businesses that are in health and wellness spaces. And I said, I'm going to come in, I'm going to offer a workshop. We're going to sell the workshop. This is how much it's going to be. You market it to your members. This is what I'm going to do for your members. We'll split the proceeds. I'm literally bringing you cash. Right? And then anybody from your event who books my VIP day, I'll give you a commission on. This is a win-win for a business owner who has to pay office space, but it's a win-win for me because now I have access to their entire community that they're promoting to all of their members who already know, like, and trust them. Right? And I started with finding 3 people that were in my community. So when I say community is the currency, I really mean it. I went to my community. I said, who are 3 people I know who have businesses that aligned? And now we've set this up next month. Now, this does mean I have to leave my house. And so I felt like Katrina was affirming that God is like, yes, Tara, get out of your house, right? Sometimes you need that the universe is telling you this is what you're supposed to do. But this has always been my sweet spot. I find other business owners and I think through, if I was that business owner, what would make it worth it for me to say yes to this person? And all business owners want marketing. They want new clients. They want cash. Like, how can you create a symbiotic relationship? I think that's the right word, where you both benefit and you can leverage that it's little work for them, big return for them, but they're giving you access to their community. And when you figure those out, and I'm happy if anybody wants to reach out to me to brainstorm because this is legit my jam. I love this because it benefits both people and you will have a never-ending stream of people to connect with.
Okay, can I put the introvert option too? Because y'all are talking a lot about going in person. And while I do love it, I will hibernate for a year every time I do an in-person event because I am an introvert and I love people. I love being around people, but y'all exhaust me. So my thing is, this is why I love social media, because I can go out and be social while, in the yoga pants, in the cozy home. So I do what I call social stalking to find my people. I'm in the comment sections, y'all. So I'll go to like the people I learn from, my business coaches, my virtual mentors. They don't know me, but I know them, and I'm in the YouTube comments, I'm in the Instagram comments, and I'm just creeping. I don't start conversations with people. I'm not sliding into DMs. I'm just like, oh, I feel like I could be friends with this person, and I'm going to now stalk them online. So then I'll find their Instagram, I'll sign up for their email list. And so this is how I built my community. It was like, I just found people who was like, I think we could be friends. And legit I have a business group we're business besties. We've been meeting every other month for 6 years because of this method. I found them on Instagram and then was in the DMs like, hey, so I feel like our businesses are like at the same point. We're doing similar things. Do you want to hop on a Zoom call? And we've supported each other over the years. No, this is not scalable, but I think building community isn't scalable. Like we talked about the difference between audience and community. Audience scalable, yes, you could do that at scale. Community to me is like multiple one-on-one connections. And so if y'all want the introvert option, that's my advice.
Let's actually talk about PR, community building, content for introverts for a second, because it's a big one. Comes up with me all the time. Clients are like, I want to be seen as an expert. I want to build, my community, but I am introverted. So I don't think that PR or some of these more forward-facing methods are for me. And I'm here to debunk that. And I'm going to debunk it with just one tip. If you are looking to grow your community and find your people, there is a platform that you can use for this. It's called Threads. And if you're not using it, this is your sign to get on Threads, because Threads is a discovery platform. So I feel like a lot of the time people are getting a bit like, ugh, the Instagram algorithm is so hard. I'm doing the talking heads, I'm showing up on stories, I'm doing the extroverted things, and it's not moving the needle. I don't find it's reaching my people, and it's feeling really hard to get in front of the people that I want to meet. And I can't find the communities. I can't find the events to go to. Let me tell you, if you start posting on Threads, you are going to discover and be discovered. And it is the perfect introvert platform, because you just type and write and share your insightful ideas and opinions, and you are going to find your people there. And they may come over onto Instagram or onto your email list. It's been a major growth tactic for my own business, and it's connected me to so many wonderful communities. It's helped expand my reach so much more. And you know when I do it? Sunday morning in my sweatpants when I'm having like a coffee and Bailey's, and I'm just like, now I'm gonna go find my people on Threads. So that is my tip, my introverted tip for finding. Like yesterday, in my community here, I'm outside of Vancouver, Canada. I had just posted that I'm hosting my first in-person event in March, and I didn't think that anybody, because I live in a bit of a smaller suburban community, I did not think that was going to reach anybody or people would be interested in going to my event. That was more for like my immediate community. I thought I was sharing more of the marketing side of things. I have had like 10 signups of women I do not know. They are near me. They're near me. They saw, Langley, British Columbia come up on Threads, and they're like, hey, I'm interested. So that's the proof. That's the evidence. That's the proof. So that's one like really tangible takeaway I would encourage for anybody watching this. Threads changed my life. I refer it to anybody who is sick and tired of feeling like they have to extrovert all the time, like show their face and all the things. For me, as a personal brand, that's still like not totally non-negotiable. It's still a piece, but Threads makes it a lot easier to not have to rely on that all the time.
Yeah, Threads is such an interesting place. It reminds me a little bit like back on MySpace, where you can just like change your status all the time, and then like your friends will respond to it, which is why I like it. Like I know I need to be better about it, because like it's always like my random thoughts that you think like nobody's gonna see. People are like, oh yeah, me too. I'm like, oh, people also go through these same things. So it's fun, and it feels way less pressure, because like I suck at social media. I really struggle with like recording videos of myself, creating reels. Like I can write the caption, but like it feels like a lot of work to me, but Threads feels a lot more manageable. And I think going back to like feeling like nobody is there or like everything is crickets, I think it's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to feel defeated. It's going to happen a lot. It's not permanent, but it's absolutely okay to just sit in your feelings a little bit and just step away from it for a little bit. Do literally anything else. Go on a walk, go to the gym, talk to a friend, go shopping, just because I think a lot of times we overthink what we're putting out there, especially when it's our first time doing it. And we think, oh, well, I've tried it for 2 weeks. Nobody has commented anything. It must be a failure. And usually it's not. We just have to adjust a little bit. And that's why it's so important to be able to find your community, whether it's on social media or in-person events, because it can be really helpful just to vent to a friend. And then you realize like, oh, I just had like this light bulb moment. Now I understand why I need to do differently, or have like a mentor, for example, or someone who's like a little bit ahead of you just to give you is like have like a sounding board, for example, just because it really can do wonders just like vocalizing what you're thinking or what you're going through, or just physically moving your body, because it happens sometimes we think we create something great. Like I've written some emails to my list. I'm like, oh, this one's really good, and like the subject line is really funny, and like nobody opens it as much as like one that's like totally different that I don't think is going to do well. But that's okay. It's okay to feel upset about it. Just let it roll off your back and just take some time to reflect and readjust, and then just keep going.
I love that. I feel like mine, like one of the things that I love to use is referrals. Like I do so many referrals because my ideal clients that I'm working with have friends that are other ideal clients. So that's like one of my little ways that I like to connect with them. I do a lot of referrals, especially for like the bigger things that I do, like a retreat or like an event or something like that, where, they get a certain amount towards the next thing. And then another thing that I wanted to mention is doing affiliates, which I think a lot of us, do, right? Affiliate links are going to be so good because this way you can give it to another community leader who has their own community with ideal clients, and they get like a kickback, right? They get that percentage back of whatever, however many tickets that they sell or whatever. And so I feel like then, yeah, it's kind of like goes back to, I think Tara was saying this, but it goes back to like, kind of just, that symbiotic relationship. Exactly. Like you're helping each other out and they have ideal clients for you. So like, why not just share? Like I'm all about collaboration, like all day long. I'm just like such a networking like person. I just love it. Like it's so good. Help each other out.
I've because I work in a more established and a more traditional industry, I can't focus just on, even though I've built my practice primarily online. For example, next Monday and Tuesday, I'll be at a summit in Nashville in person, paneling about tax and legal updates. And so I've had to go out and be in public, which I think is good because I've met a lot of interesting people. And online, I found that business grows faster. But when you're building the relationships in person, those relationships, people are going to bring you more people. And those are going to be longer standing relationships because they physically know you. You're not just a face behind a screen. So I do a lot with women's groups in Nashville, and then also, and I'm in Memphis, about 4 hours away. And then I also do work with BNI, which is a little boring. I mean, we've all heard about it. But honestly, they have a lot of resources if you're new to networking. And I've found that within my immediate community, I've met people who are quickly becoming business friends. So don't sleep on those boring networks.
I love it. I love that so much. So we've got questions like popping off in the chat like crazy, that kind of flow into what I was going to ask you guys next. So I wanted to kind of shift a little more into the like nitty-gritty stuff about content itself. And so I was going to ask you, what is maybe one thing that you do or a tool or a platform that you use that makes your content creation process easier and helps you connect with your people? But we've got some questions in the chat that I think kind of go along with this. So number one being, Amber asked, is it ever too soon to start an affiliate program? So Audrey, You just mentioned affiliates. So in a second, I would love you to talk a little more about that and how that helps with your content creation. And then Amber asked, with threads being so new, do you have any hot tips for it? So Katrina, I'm going to have you focus in on that part. Okay. Everybody else, I'd love to hear something that you do or use, a platform, a tool, something you like, a strategy you've created that makes connecting with your people through content specifically a little bit easier.
Okay, so for affiliates, I feel like it doesn't really drive my content. I feel like that's more of a behind the scenes thing for me. I'm sure that other people might do that a little bit more upfront, on content wise. But doing the affiliate links, it's usually something where I'm connecting with like another business owner, another community leader, and that's all behind the scenes. However, it does help the growth quite a bit because you're able to provide them with content to post about your event. And I feel like that's a huge way to help you grow. That's really been helping me a lot. I'm hosting my own virtual summit coming up. It's all like personal development. It's not business related, but because I'm collaborating with so many speakers and they all have their own codes to give to their people so that they can, come in and join the event, they're all posting about the event continuously, right? And their stories, static posts, reels, whatever. And so that has been the biggest way for me to use that kind of content to grow. And it's actually been growing quite a bit. My email list is growing a lot. It's helping a lot. But definitely, I think the secret kind of sauce to that is having your own branded, content that you're giving them to post and giving them a little bit of copy so that they know what to post. If you just give them free reign over everything, it might not come out, reflecting your brand the way that you might have wanted it to.
Follow up to that really quick, Audrey. Do you think it's ever too soon to start an affiliate? Like, what's your kind of meter for like, this is the moment where you would be like, yeah, I should start an affiliate program?
Oh my gosh, I skipped that part of the question because it's
No,
like,
you're so good.
to me, that's like not even a question. Like, it's never too early. Like, just start, like, just go for it. You have to. Like, I don't care if you have like two connections, like, it doesn't matter. Go for it because the more people, like we were all just talking about networking, it's like if somebody comes up to me and they want me to be an affiliate for something and that's aligned, right? It's like, of course. And then I might know five other community leaders that are going to be like a perfect fit for you too, right? So just like that's going to start that networking. And yeah, it's never too early.
Okay, I'll just hop on over to Threads. My biggest tip, so like the very first thing that I encourage all business owners to do when it comes to posting on that platform, it's don't treat it like it's your diary journal, the vent sesh, which is what I see a lot of business owners do wrong. We're sharing more of our personal thoughts or frustrations. Maybe there's a client situation that has us a bit frustrated, so we just want to vent. Do not, no, write it down in the private journal. Don't put it online because that's like if you're at a crossroads, that's going to take you the wrong direction. What I want you to use Threads for, like almost exclusively, okay, is communicating your thoughts, your authoritative opinions, perspectives on the work that you do. That is what's going to bring in aligned opportunities, clients, speaking gigs, speaking inside of memberships. The personal side of things, while I love to talk about personal branding, I come at personal branding from a personal professional side of things. So a lot of my personal life, I actually don't share on platforms because I don't think I need to. Anything I share from a personal side, like, play a lot of golf, love to do that, have a cute dog, like I'll sprinkle those things in, but I always want to bring people back to remembering me as the PR for personal brands expert. So on Threads, because it's so sporadic on what you are actually shown on a feed, if you're a user, you don't want the content that people are seeing from you to be like frustrated or to give you like a negative perception. You also don't want it to like they have no idea what you actually do. So I would really encourage everybody to use it from a very strategic standpoint. Like share the thoughts and opinions around the work that you do, the business, your like, for lack of a better word, hot takes. That's what people are going to be drawn to. And if you are using the platform, or if you're going to start using the platform, you're going to see just how many opportunities there are to speak inside of people's memberships or at events. And you want to make that a really easy yes for people, for the person that's looking for speakers. So I have like a 95% success rate when it comes to securing these opportunities because I keep it short and sweet. I am a PR for personal brands expert, help business owners feel famous for their work. That is the thing I use every single time I see someone looking for speakers. And then people see that, they're intrigued because it's differentiated, it's specific. They then click over to my Threads profile and they see all my opinions, perspectives, all the things that I would talk about inside their membership, they're now seeing. So it makes it a really easy yes for them. If instead, my feed was like, oh, this client didn't pay on time, or my dog threw up this morning, ew, like that's not going to get me the speaking opportunity, unfortunately. So I would just encourage everybody, like I could go, you know, Haley and I are going to talk more about this in the near future. We can unpack all of the thread/PR/personal branding, but I would just take it from a professional perspective, although I know the call, I know the what to be passive aggressive online, but you got to resist that. You got to like hold it back and remember it's all brand perception. So start there, start there. And yeah, we can unpack that a little bit more in the future.
All I kept thinking as you were saying that is your vibe attracts your tribe. So be really careful what kind of vibe you're putting out because those people will find you.
I want to add to the like thread stand conversation because I'm here for it. I love it. And also, I do think one of the fastest paths to content creation is leaning into your preference. I think preference does matter for how you want to deliver your content. So I was doing a one-on-one call with a client last year. And she was all about TikTok. I want to be on TikTok. I want to be on TikTok. I'm like, great, good. Let's do it. Let's put the TikTok plan together. Come to find out, she doesn't like creating videos. And I'm like, what? Like, to be honest, if I was looking at it objectively, her content would work really well on TikTok. And when she does record a video, I'm like, that's not bad. It could work well. But recording videos for her is such a process, like a mental process, that like, even if we did the most perfect plan ever and she sat down to do it, she wouldn't stick with it because she doesn't like it. She didn't like any part of it. So the end of the strategy session ended up being threads was her thing because she likes writing and she likes writing short, quippy things. And I was like, okay, I know you could potentially do really well on TikTok, and let's lean into your preference of writing and use threads. And she already has like all this long form content in her newsletter. So we just took some of her little phrases from her newsletter, put it together on threads, started building her community there, and she loves it. And I feel like when it comes to content creation, there's so much potential for what we can do that I feel like we need to start with what we're most naturally going to do. Like I'm a talker, so my thing is my podcast. Like I never skip a podcast. It is my thing. But if you ask me to write a blog post, I'm like, I can do it, but like it'll take me too long. And so I feel like leaning into your preference to me is like one of the fastest paths to consistent content creation.
One
So
thing
I'm
that
here, but well, can I ask a question? I know I'm supposed to be giving answers, but I have a question just for these thread girls because threads I went on a little bit and then I was like, dude, like keyboard warriors are just like legit, not my people, right? And I was like, peace out. This is like, Twitter point two. But now you're having me rethink this. Like maybe there's nice people there. So I'm curious, how often for someone who's never posted, like, do you think how often would you post? When would you post? Do you think it's like a lot in one day? Is it you have to do it every day? Because you can't really schedule out on threads. So I'm totally crashing the party and asking my personal question.
You can schedule on threads. And a lot of the scheduling tools now support threads connection. I would instead of like a post, I'm sorry, I'm taking over this, but instead of like a post-based output, I always recommend a time-based. So instead of saying, post 5 times a day on Threads, for some people that's nothing. For other people, they're like 5 times a day. So I rather give you a time. So if you're like, okay, I only have 3 hours this week, I'm like, great. One of those hours you're going to work on content. The other 2 hours you're going to space out throughout the week and actually comment and like and engage with the community. So instead of saying post 5 times a day or whatever it is, it's like, how many posts can you create in an hour? That's how many you're going to do this week. And that's what I usually recommend for people.
Katrina, do you have additional thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, I'm a little bit sporadic, and I thought that was going to be a bad thing on Threads, but honestly, it's like I'm someone who I'm like 4 or 5 times a week on Instagram, like consistency. On Threads, for me, it has to come from a place of I have the words or I don't. So I find I'll like sit down. Usually it's when I'm like relaxed and my I don't have all the like things flooding my brain on like a work day when I'm working on client stuff. So I'll just post a bunch at once because Threads is going to push those out to the algorithm based on like what they think your followers or people that align with your interests are going to see. And then I might go a couple days with not posting, and it hasn't seemed to affect like my results. I'm not someone who stays focused on like the follower count or that kind of thing on Threads. I'm really just like, I'm going to keep sharing my thoughts because I see it brings people over to Instagram and my email list. And you just kind of test. What do people like hearing about? What opinions seem to resonate? Yeah. Are there keyboard warriors? For sure. But that's like unfortunately the trade-off. And I post some like hotter PR takes, and at first I was nervous about sharing those because I'm always nervous that like the more traditional PR people are going to kind of come for me sharing all the industry secrets. But actually haven't found that. I think Threads now knows who to push my content to, so it takes a bit of like trial and error, and also like feeling confident in your messaging and you want to share. I think that's actually a great way to build your confidence. So yeah, I do it sporadically. It hasn't seemed to be an issue, but I do tell myself like 2 or 3 times a week I want to be on there. It doesn't have to be every day. Could be 10 posts at once and then I'm done. So I would find your flow with that.
I love that this became like
Sorry, I cut
let's
Megan
teach
off.
Threads kind of conversation.
Sorry, I cut Megan off. I didn't mean to do that.
No, Tara, you're so good. And for those of you that are like listening and you're like, I actually really want to learn more about Threads, Katrina and I have something coming really soon that's going to help you out with this. So make sure you're tuning into the Females on Fire podcast. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Circling this back, Megan, I saw you on mute earlier, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that content creation piece.
Well, two things. I was going to say for Threads, I have my largest local client actually found me on Threads. So even though I'm out in my own community, like I think the algorithm feeds you people who are close to you geographically anyways. But anyway, that's just a sidebar. But for me, I have spent a lot of time in corporate America where I've had to teach myself how to speak corporatese or speak in technical terms in order to be taken seriously. And so for me, when I'm creating content, I'll write it like, because it's just second nature to me, but then I'll run it through ChatGPT, not for it to write my content, but for it to tell me the things that people aren't going to understand. I'll say, this is content. Please make sure that this is understandable to a sixth grader. And it'll come back and explain to me, what I've put in the content that may be too technical. And so that's a really good tool. And if you're not using AI, you're gonna be left behind. Like I said, don't use it to write all your content because we're tired of the little rocket ships and the level ups and all the emojis, but use it to really make your content palatable and understandable to your ideal client.
I'm really glad you brought up AI because I was going to talk about that too, because I do get asked about that a lot because I'm a copywriter. So people, especially initially, there was a whole lot of panic within copywriters thinking like, oh, the robots are going to replace us and like no one's going to want to work with us, which really interestingly, like the pendulum swung the other way because people have relied on it way too much. But I do think it can still be a really valuable tool. I think Claude is the best AI tool to use. And I use it, like I took screenshots of all my testimonials from all my clients, any positive comment that I've gotten from like any speaking engagement or like in a Google Doc after a client has gone through it. And I fed it all the screenshots and I asked it, I think it was analyze these testimonials for like my UVP, what really differentiates me, like 3 different like wins and like direct quotes and stuff. And you just keep asking it analytical questions like that, and it's able to pull some really great information that serves as a really good base for things that you can talk about in your content, because we don't want to be like sell, sell, sell all the time. We still want to nurture and build that relationship with your subscribers, with your audience, and with your community. But it's a really great way to just dump a lot of information in it, but be very specific about who you are, what you do, who you help, who you're trying to attract, and just listing out ideas. Because like I don't like creating my social media content for LinkedIn during the week because I'm working on client work, so I feel like I don't know if it's a little bit disjointed to me. So I usually do it on the weekend. So I set aside like an hour and I already have my list that like AI has given me. So like it doesn't write it for me, but it gives me a really good starting point. So I don't have to sit and think about, well, I don't know about what to talk about this week. And it makes things so much easier to help you write faster. So it's not doing the work for you, but it can still be a valuable tool. And like what Megan was saying, sometimes we use too much jargon, or sometimes a piece of content sounds a little bit different than what our attention is. And it's also helpful too, like if you want to say, hey, does this sound helpful or does this sound friendly? And it can give you some good tips. But like I do think it's definitely a great thing to use, as long as you're not over relying on it and then getting all the rocket emojis like other people.
I love this so much. And this went so many different directions, right? It was like threads and AI and all of this stuff. And I love it because it just goes to show you that like you have so many options. There are so many options for connecting with your people. And I think sometimes that scares us, right? It's like, there's so many things. What do I do next? But I hope that this was like a really beautiful reminder for those of you listening that those options don't have to be overwhelming, right? They get to be opportunities. Andrea, I feel like I'm using all your alliteration here. Like the options are not overwhelming. They're opportunities, right? Oh, we love the alliteration, but they're opportunities for you to find what really truly works for you. Um, and I know we've got like so many sessions coming up this afternoon that utilize AI and are talking about how to integrate AI into your content and into your community building efforts and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be really good too. We've had a bunch of questions pop up in the chat. So I'm going to try to kind of breeze through them and we'll just have a couple of you like jump in on each. So Jamie asks, hang on, she had multiple questions. I want to get through all of them. Let's do this first of all. AJ asked if anybody has any thoughts on Substack. Do any of you use that at all? Audrey, you looked excited.
I started to. I'm still learning a lot about growing. I've seen a couple people talking about it on Threads actually, and that they are starting to grow and like really take off on Substack. But when I tried, it's a little bit harder to like reach your people on there is what I've noticed. But I've kind of started just posting on there. I like it because I really do like the long form content and you can like really write on there. That's all I know.
I know that a lot of the authors that I work with use Substack. So if you are in a creative space, that is a great way to build a list and then also monetize, as you're writing. And so how I'm approaching it in 2025, more on the second half of the year, is I'm going to balance my native blog, getting it redesigned and posting to my native blog, and then also repurposing, rewording, putting into Substack, with the goal of in a few years being able to create another revenue stream through a monetizable newsletter. And you'll be able to do that easier with a platform like Substack. So it's creating those micro revenue streams when you are a service provider that's really going to help you live that lifestyle in the future. And it's kind of a long game. So if you're good at writing, if you're writing a blog anyways, if you're writing LinkedIn post, kind of repurposing that to Substack would be a really good idea.
I was just going to add that Substack to me is potentially could be the antithesis to YouTube for people who don't want to do video. It's long form content that also has a lot of social components. It has its own social feed. There's a discoverability element. It's not as popular as YouTube, but if you're a writer and you want to monetize that and build a community, I do think there's a lot of potential on the platform.
Amazing. So Dana, I hope that answers your question about Substack a little bit. It may be worth giving it a try and seeing what happens. So Jamie had a question about, and she targeted this toward Andrea, but anybody that wants to jump in, feel free. In terms of adding people to your email list that you're connecting with and adding those email addresses in, if they're not coming in through an opt-in form, like say you've got a personal connection with them, or they come through a strategic partner, what's your process for integrating them into the community and adding them to your email list? And like, when do you do that? So I tried to get a little clarification from her because she was like, if they're not opting in, when do I add them to the email address? And I'm like, wait, how are you getting their email address if they're not opting in? And she said through maybe a personal connection or a strategic partner.
Yeah, so I use lead magnets for this, and I don't ever assume someone wants to be on my email list because maybe they don't. Okay, so I don't manually add anyone. However, if I meet someone, let's say in real life, and they're like, "Oh, I want to stay connected with you," I have a bunch of lead magnets that could be a good option for them, or they can just sign up for my newsletter directly. And I consider these invitations with no expectation of them taking action. And this is where I like the dating analogy too, because I feel like sometimes as business owners, we just assume, oh, they want my number. I mean, maybe they don't. Maybe they just want to like bump into you at the next event. Maybe they don't think it's that serious, right? And you're all like, "Oh, marry me." You know what I mean? Like, and they're like, "Oh, aggressive." So I feel like there's an invitation where you can be like, "Oh, I have this thing. You can sign up if you want or not." And I have people who will never sign up for my email list who will buy things. That's fine. I have people who will attend events like this and never buy things. That's fine too. So yeah, just put the invitation out there. And if they sign up, great. If not, I leave it up to them. They're a grown adult. They can do what they want.
Yeah, I 100% agree because with email marketing, you do want to make sure like everybody like explicitly wants to be part of your email list and don't just assume. And I have seen business owners sometimes that they'll add people, say like past clients, and they just start an email list and they move them onto there. And I know they don't have bad intentions, but you do really want to make sure they do have some type of opt-in, whether it's through a lead magnet, whether it's like a traditional newsletter with the title, for example, just because we want to make sure everyone is in there because they chose to be and make it really easy for them to unsubscribe. Google and Yahoo are now getting pretty strict about it. And I know a lot of email marketers initially they were freaking out. They're like, "Oh, this is gonna be bad for like analytics." I think it's a good thing. As long as you make it easier for people to unsubscribe, then that's completely okay. If you're sending high quality emails, then you're likely to stay out of the spam folder because again, you're building that relationship and you're building that community with your audience. Lead magnets are really great to get people in. A lot of people, they think, oh, I need to have 5 or 6 different lead magnets. You can, but if you don't have the time for it, that's completely okay. It's fine to just have maybe 1 or 2 different points of entry and then have a really short sequence to go that goes along with it. Like if you got people coming in through like a bundle, for example, I would send them the delivery email with the freebie and then wait about a week or so to then introduce yourself and talk about more your business and how you can help them rather than kind of flooding their inbox, because especially with something like a bundle, which is great for growing your list and also getting resources as someone who is participating in the bundle, it can be really overwhelming for your inbox. So you want to make sure that you're being respectful of their time too, and you're continuing to nurture and build that relationship. But again, you don't have to have a million different entry points. You can as you realize you have specific offers for specific people, but you don't have to have a million things going on at once either.
I love that. And Melissa's got a great session on email marketing coming up. So you guys need to check that one out later. And Jamie said, this has been standing in my way a lot because I have a lot of lists of email addresses, but they haven't quote unquote opted in. So Jamie, I'm going to encourage you to maybe reach out to Melissa. Is that okay, Melissa? If they reach out to you, because she's all about the email marketing stuff and she's got so much knowledge in that area. And I'm sure all of our speakers would be totally cool if you reached out to them and asked further questions. But I know Melissa specifically talking about email marketing at the summit. So she'll be a great resource for you. We have 2 more questions. I know we're kind of coming to the end of our time together. So I got 2 more questions really quick. Speakers, I really want to hear from all of you on both of these questions. But we're running out of time, so that might be a little tricky. So I'm going to ask you to keep it like short and sweet and beautiful. And I think you all have the power to do that. So the first question came from Aggie, I hope I'm saying her name right. I'm not sure if I am, but she said, can you share a moment when a piece of content unexpectedly sparked a big response from your audience? And I loved the way this was phrased because she didn't say, can you share when you went viral? And I loved this because you can kind of think of it as going viral, or you can think of it as it didn't go viral, but it got a really big response from my people, my ideal people. So can you each really short and sweet just share a time when a piece of content that you created sparked that big response?
Yeah, I got super vulnerable with my audience and I did a carousel about things that I went through financially, going through financial abuse, talking about owing the IRS $65,000 because my ex-husband wouldn't let me pay estimated tax payments, going through the divorce, getting into credit card debt, and then getting myself out of it. And believe it or not, I got 2 clients out of that post, even though there wasn't a lot of engagement, because people aren't going to be like, in your comments like, yeah, me too. I'm like up to the eyeballs in credit card debt. So that was very powerful and a great reminder that you don't have to be perfect in order to be seen as a competent professional.
I'm sure everyone's familiar with the I met my younger self for coffee trend that was going on a couple weeks ago. So I tend to do a bit of storytelling, digging into the journey to take my community along with me, but I wasn't expecting that post to perform as well as it did. And honestly, I think it's because I actually used photos instead of video. Like the actual format was like a reel, but I was inspired by a friend of mine, Brittany Hahn, who did hers as old photos of herself. And I was like, yeah, that's actually very beautiful because it's people have the opportunity to see you before they had a time to actually meet you. And I mean, me 5 years ago, as my younger self, had like the thickest lash extensions, the drawn on eyebrows, like it was a whole vibe. And I think we underestimate the power of that kind of content, like from a visual perspective. We get caught up in the curated brand photography, stylish, perfect. I know I can get a little bit caught up in that. So I think my community really appreciated seeing some older images where I definitely look different, and it brings them to connect with you at that point too, which I thought was really beautiful. So doing things a little bit differently to like veer from the trend is always an experiment, but that one really, yeah, was unexpected for me.
I love that. And I just have to plug this really quick. And then Audrey, I'll pass it back over to you. I have to plug this just because you brought it up, Katrina. It's so funny that you mentioned that trend about the meeting my younger self for coffee because Jenna Cecilia is this beautiful writer and poet. And she actually created that trend because she wrote a beautiful poem about meeting herself for coffee. And if you guys want to go check her out, she was in the very early days of our podcast. And it was such a cool episode. You'll have to scroll way on back because this was years ago, but it was such a beautiful episode about authenticity and really vulnerability and pouring yourself into what you create. So I had to plug that because she created that trend and it popped off. And I was like, oh my gosh, we had her on the podcast back when we first started. So it was so beautiful. Audrey, we'll pass it back over to you and get back on topic, but super, super quick, short responses for these.
I think something I really like to do that's kind of worked, especially in DMs. Like, I love getting people to like DM me. I want to create that connection, that community. But I love, like, speaking of the trends, I love to kind of flip them a little bit sometimes, like that, just to kind of show like my thoughts, my opinions on everything. There was that one towards the end of last year where it was like I'm beating myself up, thinking I didn't do enough, and then everybody did their highlight reel. And I was like, oh, like I wrote that whole thing and then I was like, JK, like I don't do that because like I'm just, trying to like promote the self-love, or I gave an opinion, whatever it was, I forget, but like gave an opinion on something that I would share like with a client. And it was just kind of a fun way to like just twist that whole trend around and just show who I am and more of my personality.
One of the posts that I posted last summer that did really well for me was sharing my personal history. So it was on Juneteenth. So I talked about my family's history with slavery, and a lot of people just resonated with how, I'm just 2 to 3 generations removed from that. And then I talked about how, I'm a business owner, and, my great great grandmother is probably looking down on me and smiling. And then imagine the life that my kids will have as well. The history there. So being that vulnerable worked. I will say too, I woke up and was like, oh, it's Juneteenth, posted it on Threads. It took off immediately, like 40,000 likes or something. And then I filmed a video on TikTok and that has like 100,000 views or something. So it came from an inspired place, but it was something that I think worked really well because of that.
Well,
I
this
love
is
that.
probably not your greatest answer because my most viral ones, I mean, ones that have like 500,000, 1 million views, literally have nothing to do with my job or my work. And this is where I was like, okay, social media, and I get, I'm a different generation. Okay. Like I got the hair growing on, like, right. And I was like showing up and giving really valuable content. Nobody was listening. I literally was about to leave the house and I did like literally like 1 minute rant about some stupid nail trend that I saw that I thought was the dumbest thing I had ever seen. And why would anybody do their nails? 1 million views later. Like I was like, what is this about? And then somebody actually said, a keyboard warrior, right? Like, what's wrong with you caring about people's nails when there's like real problems in the world? And I was like, dude, I've been showing up consistently here to address the real problems. None of you care about that. You care about nails. So this was an interesting thing to me. So my most viral ones have just kind of been these ridiculous, have nothing to do with anything. And so I'm starting to strategically use those and sprinkle them in between the posts that I do want to attract my ideal client, because I notice that if I get this crazy, stupid viral one, then like they'll watch a couple that are afterwards, right? So probably not the best strategy for those of you who are PR people. I'm sorry, you might be able to help me, but that's what's going viral. What I will say is I recently had a post that was an intentional post that did well. And that's why we were talking. I was like, let me look it back up and see what it was. Cause I was like, oh, finally one that's actually relevant to what I do. And it had a lot of comments on it and feedback. And it was just a quote. And the quote is, become the captain of your own ship instead of letting the storms of life decide where you go. But what it started with was a question: what does the best version of my life look like? And I think that all of us have that best version of our life. So I think there was something about that that connected with people, and I ended up getting quite a bit of comments on that. So maybe a question.
It's actually been the same for me. Outside of being vulnerable, like the one email to my list that like got a lot of replies is actually about my dog, who like everyone knows who he is. He's super cute. He's a German Shepherd Husky, so he looks like a giant blue-eyed coyote. He's super super sweet. So like everyone knows who Gambit is. So he doesn't like bananas, but he goes crazy for banana bread. And my boyfriend and I left to hang out with this family, and he's alone for 6 hours after I made this huge batch of banana bread. And I jokingly thought, well, I'll put it in the microwave. He's never like, he's very long. Like I'm 5'3", we're the same size. And we come back 6 hours later, and my boyfriend goes, the gas is on, we need to leave. He tried to get into the microwave because we have a gas stove, and he like, because he's like very lanky, he was like reaching over to it. Luckily he was fine, but like I was like panicking, and like a week later, like I wrote to my list about it, but people were like really thoughtful about it. They were so nice, like, oh, I'm glad that he's okay. I'm like, oh, he has fans, I'm glad that, for yes, I'm glad that he's okay. But like the random little moments that you have like in your everyday life can really generate a lot of responses too. So that was an interesting day, but luckily we're all good.
I love that. I love that you're all infusing your personal, whether it's your personality or those personal moments like that, Melissa, into your content. So we've only got about 2 minutes left. I know there were so many questions in the chat and we went so many different directions with this, which I think makes for such an incredible panel. And it's why we love doing these. So if you're still here and you're listening with us, please pop in the chat and just give a little thank you to our speakers. Let them know that their time here was really valuable to you. Maybe share a takeaway if you're feeling it. We've got afternoon sessions coming up for you, a full slate of them. There's a lot to dive into. And then tomorrow's our last day. You guys, I cannot believe it. But it's our last day. You'll be hearing from a couple of these speakers tomorrow. And then we're wrapping it all up with our summit wrap-up party tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So to close us out, speakers, before we go dive into those afternoon sessions, this is going to be the quickest question ever. In 10 words or less. So think really hard. 10 words or less. Don't go over. 10 words or less. What do they do to start today? Infusing that community into their content, really infusing themselves into the content, pushing that content out to really connect with their people. If you had to give one tip of something they can go do this afternoon, we want that really tangible. I don't care how small it is. I want them to have a something that they're like, I got to do this before midnight tonight because the panel told me to. What is your one thing? And I'm going to let you free for all jump in so that you're ready when I call for you. Tara, we'll start with you.
5 words.
Go.
Find your story and tell it. 6
Yes.
words.
I love it. I love it. Who's next?
Find someone new and talk to them.
Andrea, I love it. The introvert. She's like, just say something to someone. I love it. I love it. Who's up next?
I'll go. Capitalizing off what Tara said, after you got your story, tell it on Threads.
Yes. I love it. Who's up next? Melissa.
Do the thing that's making you uncomfortable and then do it again tomorrow.
Oh, yes. That was Melissa's mic drop moment for the panel, you guys. I love it. Audrey, what you got for us?
Go DM with your followers.
Ooh, yes. Good one. Megan, are you still, I don't know if she's still around. She may have had to pop off because the panel's, long. I think she's gone. Okay. That's okay. Those were really good. Those were amazing. So speakers just for you, so that you can really see these. We've got Aggie said, love that. This is such a great takeaway and such good reminders. Thank you all for sharing your insights. It was packed with wisdom. So many golden nuggets in this conversation. Betsy said, thank you so much. Amber said, thank you all. I learned so much today. Biggest takeaway is that community does not equal audience. Yes, 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 yes. AJ said, thanks. I'm an author and excited to dive into Substack because it might be a good space for me. Dana said, thank you, ladies. This has been so insightful. Loved everything about Threads and just to listen to what my people need and to give it to them. And that is what this was all about. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much to our speakers for spending your time with us, for sharing your expertise. We're so glad that you were here. Attendees, thank you for listening. If you're catching the replay, thank you for being here. If you were listening live, thank you for all the questions. Reach out to all our speakers. Let them know you found them at the Females on Fire Summit and you want to connect with them because that's what this panel was all about, right? Is that deep connection. Go enjoy the rest of the summit. Go enjoy the afternoon. We got a full lineup for you and we will see you all very